Hello guys, so we have learned a lot about lambda expressions in the last video. So in this video we will be learning more about method references. So I know many of you get confused what are method references, how to use them. I'm sure by the end of this video you will be an expert in referring to the methods in the lambda expressions. Okay, let's quickly get started. Method references can be called as a shorthand for lambdas. So suppose in your lambda expression you are just calling one method. Okay, so instead of writing a description on how to call a method, what if we can directly give the method name? Okay, this is the method name and call this method. So that is like a shorthand of lambda. So instead of writing the entire expression, these are the arguments I'm passing. These has like this method, call this method using these arguments. So instead of that entire description, we are just giving the name of the method that this method has to be called. Okay, so now let us quickly see the basic example of how method references are written. So as you can see, method references are shorthands for lambdas, and if a lambda expression is calling a method directly, then it is best to refer to the method name directly rather than a description of how to call it. So suppose how we write method references is we use a target reference and then these double colons and then the name of the method which we are referring to. So we will see more in detail about this syntax. Okay, so there are some rules which we need to follow. We will see that in detail in a while. So suppose you have a lambda expression apple a. This is the argument which we are passing. A is of type apple, and then we are doing a dot get weight. So we are calling the get weight method on apple. Okay, so with method references, how we write this is apple. Okay, the target reference, the double colon, and then get weight. So note that we are not using any brackets here because we are not calling this method. So we are just referring to this method name. We are not calling it. Okay, apple and then get weight. So in this way, instead of writing this lambda expression and describing how to call this method, like call this method on this apple and do the operation, instead of that, we are directly mentioning apple get weight. So this is more readable and more easy to see when compared with the lambda expressions. Now let us see some more examples of how we can convert some lambda expressions into their corresponding method references. So if you can see here, the first one which we saw already, apple a dot get weight, the corresponding method reference would be apple double colon get weight, no brackets. And then this is something which is like we are not passing any argument, and we are doing thread dot current thread dot dump stack. Okay, so this is the method lambda expression we have written. So for this, how we can write is thread dot current thread. So this is the reference and this is the method which we are calling on it. We are calling on that reference. Okay, so this is the reference thread dot current thread, and in that we are calling the dump stack. Now third one, if you see here, there are two parameters, string and I, and we are doing substring of this string dot substring I. So here this string is of type string, so we will write string double colon and then the substring. Which method we are calling in string is the substring method. Okay, so instead of this lambda expression, we can directly use this method reference. Now we will see in the next couple of minutes in more detail how we can derive these method references, and at that time it will be more clear to you. So in the next example, we will see string s is the thing which we are passing as input, and then we are just doing the sysout. So here for the sysout, what we can do is we will just use system.out, and in system.out we are calling the println method. So we will do system.out double colon println. Okay, so in this way we can define our method references. So that still looks a bit confusing, right? Which is the class name we have to use, which is how we define the method name, like if there are multiple calls, how we can write the method reference. So now let us quickly see like the recipe for writing method references. So basically there are 3 ways in which we can derive the method reference. So let us quickly go to these 3 ways. So the first one is, so suppose you have your lambda expression in this format, okay, you have some arguments, then on some classes static method you are using these arguments, okay, which are passed. Okay, so on this classes static method you are using these arguments. So in that case, what our method reference would become is class name, this class name, double colon, and then the method name. Okay, the static method. So this would be the method reference. So this is the first way in which we can identify our method reference. Next, in the second way, suppose you have one argument, okay, and then you have another argument, you are passing in 2 arguments. Now this argument is of type some object, okay, it is of type something. So that in that you are calling this instance method. So suppose argument 0 is, maybe it might be some string type, it is an object of string, it is some object reference, okay, string or whatever, it is some object reference. So this is the object reference, and on that object's instance method you are calling the other parameter or whatever, okay. So first one is for the static methods of classes, this one is for the instance methods, okay. So that this is the object reference, so that you need to be careful about. So this is the object reference dot instance method. So in that case what happens is, whichever classes object this is, okay, whichever classes objects reference this argument is, that class's name you should write. Okay, arg0 is of type some class, so that class name colon and the instance method. So here it was easy because to call the static method, as you know, we directly use the class name. So here it becomes a little easy. But in this situation wherein we are calling the instance method, we need to give the class name of this argument, okay, class name and then the double colon and then the instance method. This is the second way. Now coming to the third way, so suppose you have some input arguments or you do not have any input arguments, and here you have some expression, okay, this could be any expression dot, you are calling the instance method, okay. So now this expression, it could be an expression here itself like we saw earlier, the thread example which we have seen, or it could be the reference of any object, okay. This could be the reference of any object which is defined somewhere before this code, okay. There is some code here and this expr object reference is defined, okay. There is some object and this expr is defined, okay. Now this we are using it in our lambda expression, this object reference we are using in our lambda expression, and dot instance method. So in that way what we have to do is, we will use directly this expr double colon instance method. Here we will not be using the object or the class name of this expr or the object reference whichever we have. Instead of that we will directly use this expr and then we will use the double colon instance method. Okay, so all our lambda expressions which fall in these 3 categories, one is the class name dot static method or the object reference dot instance method. Here this object reference is passed as a parameter. Or the third one is the object reference which is not passed as a parameter. It can be object reference, it can be any expression, dot instance method. Okay, so in this case we are using the class name double colon instance whenever it is passed as an argument. And in the third case it is not passed as an argument but it is defined previously, or the expression is defined here itself. So we will directly use that expression double colon instance method. So all our method references will fall in any one of these three categories. So you need to identify if your lambda expression is falling into any of these three categories, and then you need to follow that particular rule which we have discussed just now, and then you can write your corresponding method references. We have learned the rules, so let us quickly take a quiz and identify the method references for these two examples. Pause the video here and try to write the method references for these two examples. So in the first one, if you see, this is our lambda expression string s, and this is integer dot parseInt. So here parseInt is our static method in integer class. Okay, this qualifies our first rule of lambda expressions to method references. So here how we can write the method reference? We can write integer class name double colon and then parseInt. So this becomes our method reference. Now the second one, if you see, we are passing two objects and then we are doing list dot contains the element. Okay, so here if you see, we are passing this list as an argument. Okay, now this qualifies for our second rule of lambda expressions to method references. Okay, so if I go back to that, okay, if we are passing in the argument and then dot instance method, what we have to do is the class name of that argument double colon instance method. So here the class of this list would be list. Okay, it is object of type list double colon contains. So this would be our method reference. So we have seen method references. What about if we can write constructor references? Yes, so apart from method references, we also have constructor references. Constructor references are similar to method references. So it's just that instead of calling the method name, we will just use a new keyword. Okay, class name double colon and new keyword. So let us quickly see that. So in constructor references, you will have just the class name double colon and the new keyword. So suppose you have a no argument constructor. So let us take our apple class. Okay, so you have the apple class and you have a no argument constructor. Okay, you have a no argument constructor, and suppose if you have one argument constructor, maybe some integer weight. Okay, and then here we are just setting some this dot weight equal to weight, and then you have another constructor for the integer weight and two arguments. Okay, one may be color and then here we are just doing this dot weight and then this dot color. Okay, so we have here three constructors of creating this apple class. For the no argument constructor, so suppose you are looking for a apple object. okay, newly created apple object. Okay, you are creating it, and then you have apple, new apple. Okay, the no argument, this is your lambda expression. So instead of this lambda expression, what we can do is we can just give apple, the name of the class, and double colon and new. Okay, so our supplier function would be this, and to get the object, what we will do is this reference dot get. So it will create the apple object for us. Now if the second example you see, if you have one argument present, then how we can do is, suppose if we are using a function, okay, function, you know that it will be of type T R, so some type and then the return type. So here our type is the input which we are passing is integer, because that is the argument here, and then our return type has to be, we need the apple object. Okay, so this is the apple object. So if you are using lambda expressions, how you will do is, you will pass in the weight, the right arrow, and then you will do new apple, and then pass in that weight, right? So now instead of this lambda expression, what we can do is, we can directly do apple double colon new, that's it. And now when you need this apple object, what you will do is, you will use the object reference of this functional interface, and if, as you know, function will have an apply method. Okay, so if you do not know about these supplier function interfaces, functional interfaces, I would request to go and watch the functional interfaces video which we have. So then you will get more idea on this. Okay. So here apple object dot apply method, and in apply method we have to pass this integer. So here we will pass in the weight whatever we want. So suppose some 110 grams. Okay, so in this way we can define. So instead of this lambda expression, we are directly writing apple new. Now what if we have more than one parameter? We have here two parameters. So in that situation, we can use a by function. So you know that by function it uses two input parameters and then a return type. So here we have integer, we have string for the color, and then we have the return type as apple. Okay, this is also an apple object. So if you write a lambda expression, how that would be is some weight, color, and then new apple, and then you are calling this constructor by passing in the weight and color. Weight and then the color. Okay, so now instead of this lambda expression, what we can do? We can just simply write apple double colon new. Right, and now if you want to create the object, so similar to the function apply, in this also you will have an apply method where you have to call the, where you have to pass the two parameters. Okay, just the two parameters, and you will get a apple object. In this way we can use the constructor references. So if you see these constructor references, we are not creating the object beforehand, right? We are just defining the constructor reference, and later on whenever we need the object of that class, we will directly call the apply or the get methods. So in this way constructor references are also very useful. So now let us quickly do another quiz on these constructor references. You can pause the video here and try to guess what would be the constructor reference for this. What you need to do, suppose now we have seen no argument, one argument, two argument constructors. So what would you do if you have a 3 argument constructor? Because we do not have anything called a try function, right? Or suppose if you have more than 3, what you would do in that situation? So these are the predefined functional interfaces, but if we want something which is not already present, we can definitely create one, right? So instead of not using the method, the constructor references, what we can do is we can create a try function Okay, so here we will have the have the return type t, and then it will have the apply method with the 3 arguments which we will be passing. Okay, and now we can use the constructor reference. So try function, just as before we used, suppose if it is integer, yeah, they have given 3 integers in the question, so let us use integer, 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 and then we have color is the name of the class, this is the object, and we can directly use try function new. Okay, in this way, even if we are not able to use the existing functional interfaces, we can create our own functional interface and then use the constructor references for those. So this was all about method references and constructor references. I hope you definitely got some idea on how to write them. If you have any questions or concerns, do let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, because the next video that would be coming is based on using both lambda expressions and method references put together, and we will see a very good example, and that will make your concepts more clear. So for that, you'll have to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever that video comes up. Thanks for watching.